Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Listen, if you never look at life and smile and be thankful, I'll tell you a story after today and you will forever change that perspective. Honored to have in our studio a wonderful company of our panel to be able to have an extraordinary discussion about health insurance and the sector. So please, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thanks so much for joining us. And we invite you always to be a part of our talk shows, particularly if you catch us in the mornings for our business buzz or for the record. But today, especially, right after the midday news and meditation, not just because Miss Susan does it all, but because it's Talk Today. And in the studio, the excellent company of Miss Annika Brown, together with our colleagues, April Panton and Miss Karina Hides. And chance to share for us, we are in the midst or the beginning, throes of the hurricane season. Mm-hmm. I don't watch the weather. If it's raining, I say, oh, car gets washed, weeds get watered. That's about it to the extent to me. But I understand even in the Gulf, friends in Louisiana being impacted by some tropical weather or the like. But we here in Grand Cayman and the Cayman Islands in general should be cognizant of how we are preparing for hurricane and making sure our properties are secure, insurance is in place, and that we're alive to tell the stories after, right, Miss Annika? So thank you very much.
Please, stay alive.
Stay. Is that a BG song? Stay. Hey, listen, if you can't laugh at me, actually not to laugh at me, but that could be your choice as well. And thanks very much as we started the first segment looking after the whole issue. Ms. Annika, I think your colleagues have nominated you, certainly with my approval. Set the tone, the stage initially. We'll get Ms. April to come in and, of course, Ms. Karina. But the idea of being prepared, say forearmed, to be forewarned is to be forearmed,
yes,
as it were.
Certainly, and most people wouldn't realize that this is a health insurance issue as well as a property insurance issue. But primarily, I think the first place would be to just make sure that everyone knows who we're speaking to. Karina Hides she has several years of experience and is one of the senior most Caymanians in this position as a broker at Aon, and has a wealth of knowledge to share with us about how to prepare physically property insurance, etc. And April Panton, who is of PALIG, Pan American Life. Did I do that right? Mm-hmm. She's also a member of the Health Insurance Standing Committee, but will be there. She's here to share with us about how to prepare yourself for the emergency, for the healthcare emergency that could take place, or just the emergency of having to leave the island in the case of a hurricane or any form of storm or required evacuation. So I'll hand it over to Karina, really.
Besides, again, welcome and thank you so much for joining us. And
well, thank you for having me here. I have to say I'm a bit nervous because it's my first time ever being on Radio Land. I
won't joke then. I'll leave it alone for today. But you're only careful.
So I'll try my best as possible. But so we're talking about hurricane preparedness for property insurance. So one of the things I would definitely recommend, or some items I would definitely recommend to look into it from a property insurance perspective, is to evaluate your property insurance coverages. And you can do this by reviewing your policy period to ensure it's up to date. Of course, ensuring that the premiums are paid up. Confirming that the property is adequately covered at its correct replacement costs. I know that a lot of people complain and say that insurance companies always tell them that they're underinsured. I will discuss this a little bit more later regarding the underinsurance clause that most property policies have in place. But yeah, that's something you should consider looking at. Obviously, reviewing your policy coverages to ascertain what is covered in a hurricane, perspective, and what's not covered. I know a lot of policies have some hurricane peril exclusions on certain items that you cover in your building, so that's something important to look at. And lastly, if you're traveling for more than 30 days, especially during the hurricane season, I would definitely ensure that you have someone looking at your property to ensure that, you don't have any negative implications in the event that a hurricane does come by and something happens.
Would it be possible then for us to ask you in that perspective if there is any concerns other than obviously, damage to your property, but if you were away, summers for instance, may take an extended 6-week, 8-week holiday, storm makes up suddenly and your house isn't as prepared as it would if you were here. There's damage. Could that affect your coverage, your settlement, and the like?
Yes, most property policies have this condition that says that if you don't have someone, or if you're away for more than 30 days, if the property is vacant, then that causes serious implications on your property insurance coverage, because there is a 30 to 40 day condition clause saying that your property cannot be vacant for more than 30 days. Now, that vacant means that it's abandoned. No one is checking into it, looked into it or anything like that. So if you have a property manager or if you have a family relative that you appoint to, check into your property in and out, then that should be suffice. But yeah, there is some negative implications if the property is left vacant for more than 30 days.
And I appreciate you emphasizing that, because I think some of us think, well, we've paid our premiums, we've gone away, we locked the doors, we may have even put on a hurricane shutters, or we have impact windows and security systems, or we've done all these things, and the house is quote-unquote secure, but it's unattended. Yeah. Who's looking into it, did this, that, and the next thing.
Yeah, if you have someone going in there weekly on the weekends checking to make sure that there's no burst pipe leaks or anything like that, then that should be fine. But if you leave it abandoned and no one checked into it within 30 days, there could be some negative implications with respect to your property insurance coverage.
I was tempted to ask, and in fact, let me have some fun. And then since Miss Brown is senior, we'll tell her about this. Not just teasing.
I'm not senior.
I just teasing. So on the way over, someone quickly asked, what's the show? And I'm like, I'm trying to get back to the studio. Okay. And the question was, nowadays we utilize technology. We have cameras in every room. We can watch them remotely. You're not physically there, but visually you can check in. Would that serve as a way to help to mediate?
Unfortunately not.
No. That was my answer, but just confirm. So no.
No.
Physically?
There has to be someone physically ensuring that they actually went inside the household and checked it out and made sure that everything was safe and sound. Unfortunately, no.
Yeah.
I mean, not to say we're not moving to that space, but unfortunately right now the policy wording is clear. And it specifies exactly what they feel as in checking into the property being in there. So yeah.
And I appreciate that, because I think more of us, as we look at our coverage, some of us, well, what's the premium? So we check that. Is it competitive? And then we figure, well, what's covered and good? How much do we have covered? Okay, that's good. And then we might even say, well, what's the deductible? And like we have that. But are we looking more closely as to something like this that is significant, that probably had we not known, maybe for some of us, this is the first time we were realizing that, honestly, if I'm not there, no one's checking on it, my house isn't abandoned. I mean, an abandoned building has a connotation. No, it's unattended.
And there's actually a question on the proposal form when you're actually filling it out and completing it and signing it. It asks us, will the house be vacant for more than 30 days? So it is a question that is asked at the time when you sign up for your property insurance. That is important too, but another important element that I would want to raise up is the replacement costs, the insured values. I see this a lot of times where I have clients just coming in and saying, oh, I just want to insure for what I owe on my mortgage. Or, my property market value says X, so I should just insure for what the property value entails. And unfortunately, that's just not how the Cayman local market insurance property works when it comes to insuring your house at the correct value. Most insurance companies look at the replacement cost values of your house. So to put it in layman terms, I know people are probably confused of what is my replacement cost. And I would say is, what will your property cost to rebuild today in the event of a loss? So it's not the market value, and it's not what
the mortgage
is.
Right.
And what happens is a lot of people, to try and save costs, they reduce their sum insured values to match what the mortgage amount is. And that's where you get in trouble, because every homeowner's policy or any property insurance policy has a condition called average clause. And you might be wondering, what is the average clause? Well, that average clause is the underinsurance penalty or clause that insurance companies use to enforce that condition. So having said all that, most property policies have 100% condition of average. They have 85%. I haven't seen anything lower than that. So what that means is you should insure your property for the correct replacement cost value so that you don't get penalized with that penalty that they have, that condition that they have.
How does a penalty actually work?
Okay, so I'll explain there.
Right.
Picking my brain now.
So what will you do then? Just, so I can maybe get a chance to, fix my hair. And it's like, let's pause. I've been kind of giving Miss Susan a rough day so far. Get back on our break. Pause, we'll come back. We'll explain that. We'll also ask you about replacement cost versus market value. And sometimes are they one the same? Is one higher? And the like. How do we ensure that as we talk apart and parcel? All right, this is important, and I'm learning more and more each day. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Some of us have perfect skin, and some of us have trouble with acne, age spots, and sun-damaged skin. Protect your skin, reduce the effects of sun damage, and restore a healthy, glowing look with dermatology treatment at Beyond Basics Medical Day Spa. General, cosmetic, and surgical dermatologist services by Dr. Geronimo Jones include treatment of acne, keloids, eczema, hair and nail disorders, and skin complications from chronic sun damage. Dermatology treatments are covered by most insurance providers. Book your consult with Dr. Geronimo Jones at Beyond Basics today. Call 945-2737.
King Sports Center Art of Fun Summer Camp is back from July 2nd to August 2nd. Now in its 15th year, the Art of Fun Camp is ideal for kids ages 5 through 10 with activities from football, basketball, dodgeball, squash, rock climbing, arts and craft, dance, singing, and more. Your child can practice physical and social skills while having fun in a safe and secure environment. For more info, call 946-KING. Like King's Sports Center on Facebook, and you can also find them on Instagram or call 946-5464. King Sports Center, providing you with all your fitness, recreation, and relaxation needs. Register before May 31st and save 10% on camp registration.
Summertime is when Cayman Airways full of people are travel to Jamaica. If you're late for checking your flight, you will lose your seat. Remember now, check-in time for Cayman Airways flight is 2 hours before departure. Make sure you're not late.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today, and thanks so much for joining us. And as much as we partner with Hazard Management Cayman in order to ensure we're prepared during the hurricane season, we're very grateful, and we thank, if she doesn't mind us sharing publicly, Ms. Anneke Brown, for helping us to facilitate this discussion. I think many of us want to be as informed, as adequately prepared, for natural disasters, hurricane in particular, and to understand not just our health insurance, but our property insurance, and how does that play into when we have to make a claim because of some natural disaster like a hurricane. So together with Ms. Anneke Brown, Ms. April Panton, and Ms. Karina Hides, we're having this discussion. Ms. Karina, thank you. I honestly, for your first time, wow, you're like a natural. So very much grateful for you sharing with us. And it's not just comprehensive, but we are actually following along completely. So thanks so much.
Okay, so I think before we went on the break, we were talking about average clause, and I just want to explain a little bit more about that. So people are probably asking, what is the average clause? And you probably might see this on your cover note binder when you receive it from your broker or insurer, or you'll have a condition that speaks towards it in your policy wording about average clause. And a lot of times people just see it and don't understand what it is, but I can explain. So it's pretty much the underinsurance penalty that insurers will enforce should your property not be insured for the correct replacement cost value of your property. So people might be saying, well, how can you ascertain that amount? Mm-hmm. Well, we're not the property evaluators. That falls outside the realms of our expertise. We usually do recommend that you seek help from like a surveyor. There's
a quantity surveyor?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they do this on a daily basis. This is their profession, so they obviously probably done the property next door, so they know how to actually value, put a price to the construction cost.
So if I may ask then, not to throw you off, but if we're getting an evaluation, when we instructing the quantity surveyor, we say, listen, this is either for this, but if it's for insurance specifically.
You ask it for insurance purposes, and they know how to differentiate. Right. Because a lot of times people will go ask for a property valuation, and they just give them the market value, and then they bring it to me, and I'm like, no, this does not work for insurance purposes. Mm-hmm. So you have to specifically say to them, I would like a property valuation for insurance purposes only.
And then equally, as we're looking at that, I know for many of us, we're not just because we can afford it, it means that we want to spend the money, but what is it our parents tell us, better to be, penny wise than pound foolish. Mm-hmm. Spend the extra money every so often to get a valuation. Yeah. Is it a standard, a practice that we do it every year, every 2 years, every 10 years to get these current valuations?
I usually recommend, I know it's expensive, and, asking a client to do that every year is a bit painful, but I usually recommend every 2 to 3 years because, I know it's like, I think it's like $300 to $600 every time you ask someone to do that for you.
No, it's a little bit more.
It's more than that. It's more now? Oh my God. I don't want to burden the client, so I just tell them, I mean, you can look at the economy too.
Right.
Like there's a lot of construction going on, so you can kind of like base and, look at the prices to construct the house 5 years ago is not the same today.
But there's inflation there as well, competitive pricing,
So you take in consideration all those things. Unfortunately, we cannot advise on what your property is valued because, again, that's outside of my profession. We have professionals that do that. So I always recommend that they seek out.
All right. So the replacement cost, so the person is instructed to go onto the surveyor, they've come back, they've said, okay, we've got this for insurance purposes. There'll be a number of values there, market value, there'll be replacement costs, and there'll be other stuff. That market value may be at X. The replacement cost may be a little bit less.
You'd hope.
I've seen cases, though. Yeah, I've seen cases where properties' market value is lower and the replacement cost is higher. Yeah. So it depends on where the property is located and the type of property. The construction.
And different things.
Yeah. So, but I think what I'm trying to clarify is to get people to understand that it's not the market value or it's not the amount you have left.
It's that amount to rebuild it.
Yeah, because what happens is, and I'm going to explain how the average clause works. I usually have a formula that I remembered, and I never take this out of my head. So it pretty much goes did over should times the amount of the loss.
Did over should.
Whoa, I gotta read it.
Yeah, times amount of loss.
Yeah. So let's just say you did. Your property is valued $500,000, but you only insured it for $250,000.
So 50%.
You underinsured. Technically, you underinsured it 50%. Times of, and let's say you have a loss of $100,000.
Yeah. Make it easier for me.
If anybody has a calculator, please.
Hey, Annika, you're the brain.
Oh, no. I don't do math.
Wait a minute. 4 of us in here, nobody does math? Susan?
Oh, God. So that is the formula that most insurance companies will use. Did over should times the amount of loss. So that, obviously you would, if you do that calculation, if you have a loss amount of $100,000, technically you're only going to be receiving half because you're insured for half.
Right.
So you are responsible for that portion of the claim that you underinsured for.
Right.
So that responsibility falls back on the insured. Now, people get upset and say insurance are crooks.
But
if you insured for the correct replacement cost value, and I'm sure if you go to a broker and even the insurance company, they would advise you, because you can look at it and say, okay, you have a 5,000 square feet home, but you only insuring it for 250,000. That don't make any sense. So we always say, please go and get a property valuation, or we recommend that you up the insurance.
Something, if I could ask of you, Ms. Green, to emphasize what you shared earlier, go to the professionals. And this is not meant, I was reminded, someone asked what's on the show, that it's not to generate business for the professionals, but it's a reason why you use those people. They're signing off on it because of the experience, the qualifications, and they can say, well, this is it. But it protects you. So you spend a few dollars, penny wise, not pound foolish, get the proper evaluation, and then you're covered.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
And then there's no back and forth between the insurance company and the clients. Obviously, this is the amount of the loss that they adjusted it for, but you have deductibles, etc. that comes after that. The DT.
So that would be in addition to.
Yeah.
So how does the average clause, the 85% that you mentioned, how does that apply to this then?
So some insurance company, depending on the market product that you select to insure, because there's tons of market products.
So a 15% spread.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah. So there's some insurance companies, though, that they have 100% average clause, so you have to insure for 100% of what your replacement cost.
Flexibility.
There's no flexibility.
Okay, got it.
But then there's other policies in the market that gives you that 85, so you have 15% leeway, so that it gives you a little chance,
a little
buffer every year. I do not recommend to get because I know some people be like, okay, well, here's my property replacement cost, let's reduce it by 15% so I can save a little $100 in the premium. No, that's not recommended, because every surveyor has their own mechanism on how they come up with their values, so it's always recommended to use what the surveyor recommended, and most insurance companies would accept that.
Clear.
What about? But I think one of the things we talked about on the break as well was construction insurance, because there's so much construction going on in Cayman right now, and of course, in order to even start that construction with a mortgage, at least, you have to have some form of construction insurance. So how does that work differently from the property insurance?
Yeah, so the construction insurance is a bit different, because how the insurance company would evaluate it is, let's just say you insured for $1 million, a property $1 million, but you only have $500,000 on the ground, then that is the amount that they would adjust it for. So there's usually a catastrophe deductible of 3% of the total contract works amount on the ground. Okay. So they won't use 3% of the $1 million. It's whatever you have on the ground at the time of the loss.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But your premium is probably calculated on the million.
Yeah, of course.
But that's spread over time. That's usually spread over the amount of time. So
the construction period.
For the construction period.
Construction period. Yeah. So if you only have $500,000 on the ground and you have a claim and the hurricane wiped the whole thing, then they would base it on whatever was on the ground at the time of the loss.
Clear.
And this is where I think the client, for instance, the homeowner, needs to be informed and involved and ask questions initially of the bank, because this is where it's probably going to originate with the construction aspect of it, and then it converts into a proper insurance policy once it's completed.
Yes, correct. So there's some policies that automatically converts to homeowners, but not a lot of market products are that. Again, it depends on the insurance company that you're with, or we place our clients with. So yeah, definitely, because a lot of good point. Because a lot of contractors or risk policies have this clause that says once you get your CO, your coverage is done. So you have to have a proper homeowners insurance policy in place.
Well, as we speak with Aniki Brown and April Panton and Karina Hides, if I could ask then, only if it's pertinent to this discussion, when we're looking at construction during that phase, so a lot of construction going on, you have your contractors all risk, which is, I guess, a construction insurance, the same term. You have that on now, and is there anything relative to how the house is when you're away from the site of your house, and it's 30 to 40 days on your construction, and during that period, A, is the onus on you as the homeowner / policy owner, B, the contractor, and then C, is it then that you have to take measures to secure the site, some storm or otherwise come in, so that it doesn't affect your potential claim?
So sorry, if I'm understanding correctly, you're asking who is the responsibility if you're a homeowner and you have a contractor building. Okay.
Right.
So it
First
depends.
part,
For vacancy.
Yeah, and then if there's an absence from the site or other things, and making sure the site is adequately prepared for an impending storm, for instance.
So it depends on who took out the insurance policy.
Okay.
So if you contract with your contractor and the contractor says, look, I'll take care of everything, I'll do the insurance because I have this blanket policy and it covers all my projects that I do on an annual basis, then the onus would be on the contractor to ensure that, one, he secured the property is not vacant, and he has done everything within the policy wording and met all the conditions to meet that, he's not doing anything that he's not supposed to be doing. Now, if the owner takes out the contractor's all risk, then the onus is on them to ensure that, one, the property is secured.
Okay. And then in that instance where you have, let's just make it simple, person's building a single family home, they've contracted with ABC, contractor who's licensed and all the stuff is there. The mortgage to bill is in place with B Bank. The bank may say to the potential homeowner, well, we need to make sure that you have insurance, not because we have shares in the insurance company, but that's another story. I shouldn't take a dig there. Let me leave that people know.
On fire today.
No, hey, it's Friday. I was late in coming in.
It's fine.
But it's potentially you can have more than one coverage on a particular property in this instance. The contractor may have a general blanket policy. The bank may require that you have, as a homeowner, as a mortgagee, coverage as well. How would that work?
Well, you see, it depends because then you can't have double insurance. That there is a condition in the policy that
one coverage per property.
You can only have one coverage per property. So that, again, it's a matter of preference. To be honest, if I was building a house, I would take out my own insurance policy.
Likewise.
And the reason why I would do that is because I don't know how many projects that contractor has going on and what his policy limits is. And I can't ask him to show me his policy wording. So just to be safe, I want my own coverage to be separated from all of the mix.
Us control people? I mean,
no, it's just
I agree
maybe
with you.
because I'm a risk
that understand risk.
Yeah, I'm a risk manager, so
That's right.
And I don't know if anything happens and he has it under his, or you don't know, he might have his contractor's all risk policy and then went back to his insurance brokerage and say, I'm doing this job, can you increase the limit to cover this job, which is the right thing to do.
But
so the client does have that option as well. But like I said, if I was doing my own home, I would take out my own contractor's all risk policy and ensure that I have my own limits, my own liability limits, and ensure that I'm covered adequately for my losses should a hurricane come.
I agree with you. I support that. And again, we recognize.
Yeah, but that's not to say that you can't ask your contractor to take care of your insurances. Right. If I think from a responsibility perspective, you as the owner of the home should ensure that you ask the contractor, can you show me where you got an extension to increase your current just for mine as a separate limit.
I see. And I think some of us may not see the cost up front because we're not paying it, but trust me, we're paying it because somehow
he's going to bill you anyway
built in there.
And the construction costs.
And listen, if I'm paying for it, show me anyway. All right, we're going to pause. Thank you all again for this. I think it's been very informative. I trust those listening are following along. Hopefully they enjoyed it, but they are being as informed as I am. When we come back, phone lines are open if you have a question, but if you listen, you'll be informed. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
What do we love more than summertime? Extra flights between Cayman and Jamaica with Cayman Airways, of course. Cayman Airways has added extra flights weekly for travel between Grand Cayman and Kingston this July and August. Visit family and friends in Jamaica or send for them to visit you in Cayman. But hurry, these extra seats will sell out fast, so book yours today. Remember now, check-in time is 2 hours before departure. Call Cayman Airways reservations on 949-2311. Contact a travel agent or book online at CaymanAirways.com.
There are plenty of reasons to be a Logic customer. There's lightning fast internet connectivity. There's the great overall customer experience. And now you can improve your Wi-Fi connectivity with Logic Boost Wi-Fi for free. With Boost, you can extend your freedom to stream, game, and download seamlessly anywhere in your home, like your patio or your underground lair if you have one. Sign up now for any Logic Bundle package and get free Boost Wi-Fi for a limited time. Visit logic.ky for details.
Hi, my name is Neraya LeBlanc. I am the minister and evangelist to the West Bay Church of Christ on 24 Batabano Road. I would love to take this opportunity to invite you to experience God's family at West Bay for yourself. We are a caring congregation that strongly believes in reaching out beyond ourselves to spread the gospel of Christ. We also take great pleasure in ministering to the needs of our people in our community. As God's called out kingdom people, we are in the business of transforming lives for the Master's use. For more information, you can visit our website at westbaycichurchofchrist.org or call us at 946-9294 or 917-1809.
Declaring the word of the Lord. Cayman Islands Church of Christ presents Word of the Lord.
Word of the Lord, heard Sundays at 6:30 p.m. on Radio Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm very, very grateful. I say this often for many reasons, but to be able to hopefully facilitate discussions like this on an ongoing basis that involves and certainly informs the public about issues as important as this. So to our panelists, the good company of Ms. Aniki Brown, together with April Pantan and Ms. Karina Hides. You didn't think that talking about insurance could be so fun. Every day I'm reminded of how special I am.
It's fun every day for us too.
See, there I go, No, but I think it's one thing sometimes for us to not know and not know that we can find out if we want to willing to ask and seek out. Mm-hmm. And this is informative and instructive, so thanks. Now as we jump into discussion and continue before we bring in Ms. April in, any other thoughts so that we don't miss?
Two more things.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, reviewing your catastrophe deductible. So obviously, there's I've seen in the market 3%, 5%, 10%. So just ensuring that you have enough money in the bank account to cover that portion of the loss that you'll be responsible for in the event of the claim. So essentially, I'm not sure if every policy has a deductible on it. Mm-hmm. Every insurance policy. So what it is the first dollar or portion amount the insured is responsible for paying before the insurers pay out the claim.
Okay.
So if you have a home value for $250,000 and there's a hurricane disaster, you are responsible for that 3% of the total sum insured.
So it could be 3, 5, or 10?
Yeah. So obviously the higher you go up, the lower the premium is, which I never recommend because the premium savings is not worth the risk retention you're retaining. But obviously everyone has different financial situations, so don't impose that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, just ensuring that you have that amount of money in the event of a loss, because insurers will pay that less.
I remember it was 1%.
No, it's now 3 and 5. Yeah, and you can go up to 10 as well.
So for people, before we ask Ms. Yurpa to jump in, for people to understand that deductible, that's the amount of money that you need to have in order to make up the difference between what the insurance is going to pay you, assuming you're not underinsured.
Yes.
And let's say it's 100,000 and you got 25,000 of that, the insurance will give you 75. Correct. You get 25. You need to make sure that you have that 25 to do the stuff.
To pay for the damages, whatever the loss is.
Again, penny-wise. All right. So, Mr. April Pantan, we wouldn't think that being part of hurricane preparedness would have this in, but there's other aspects of it, so we want to learn more from you as well.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to touch on hurricane preparedness from an individual insured's point of view. I know that in living in the Cayman Islands, obviously folks that have lived here for many years probably pretty much have this, down pat. There are a lot of new lives on the island, some that may never have gone through a hurricane before. So coming here today, we wanted to make sure that we sort of touched on all these different things to, bring the awareness. A couple of things that I want to point out is insurance ID cards. A lot of people don't realize how important these little cards are. They're equally as important as your credit card or your driver's license. So, you should always have that card with you, especially, sorry.
What, health insurance aspect?
Yeah, your health insurance. Listen, even when I travel or my children go out to a nightclub, or you never know when something's going to happen. So don't just take out your driver's license, take that card with you. Because the pertinent information that you need should you meet in an accident is on that card. You know, it's got your name, your plan coverage, how to get in touch with your insurance company so that the service provider can get the information they need to treat you. So we always recommend that you, during the hurricane, when you're putting all your important documents together, that ID card is with them. So wherever you've put your passport, you've got that in your waterproof container, whether it's a Ziploc baggie or maybe a specific hurricane container. Also, we recommend that know your login details for your portal, know how to get on to your insurance company, know how to contact them. You should also know your own benefits, know your deductible amounts. It's very much like on the homeowner side. Yes, I probably should have started with make sure your premiums are paid. That's pretty much the first one. But know your deductibles and know your covers. The biggest things generally in a hurricane are going to be your outpatient. Somebody got sick from something that happened as a result. So know what your benefits are, and make sure that you, if in case there's no communications, depending on the level of the severity of the catastrophe, have your benefit plans with you. Just that's a documentation that you should have right together with, your travel documents and that sort of thing. The other thing, and I know, we're all hearing this on the radio too, have your prescriptions, have extra prescriptions, have them handy if you have to go off the island in emergency, maybe have an extra supply of that. You may not be able to take that doctor's prescription to the U.S. or wherever you're going and get it filled. Kind of think ahead and be prepared for those types of things.
Make sure you're covered for
exactly
more than for that amount of prescription as well, because I know that's not consistent across all insurers. Yeah,
you'll have to generally get permission for that. And for folks that really have heavy medications they take on a daily basis, this is the kind of thing you want to reach out and say, listen, in the event that I have to go off island, can I have 2 months of cover? That will require special permission. A couple of the other things that we want to make sure that everybody is aware of is first aid kits. Try to help yourselves in these instances first. Have a first aid kit handy. Help yourself where you can. So these things should be right a part of your standard hurricane kit or your hurricane supplies and hurricane preparedness plan. I know a lot of people have very detailed plans. Some people are very controlling and
meticulous.
Meticulous.
Very detailed.
So these are the things you want to keep. Out front. And any questions that you're not fully abreast of, pick up the phone and call your insurance company. Especially for folks that come over from overseas, that a hurricane is not a part of their natural disasters or things that they would go through. These are the folks that we want you guys to take note, pick up the phone. I know for Ivan, we had some people on island. They were from different parts of the world, and several of them lived at Mariners Cove. And they remember them coming to us and they go, "We're just gonna hang out. Like, we're not even gonna leave." And we were like, "I don't think you really should.
You're not gonna make it."
Yeah, these folks had no idea. They were like, "I don't need an insurance card." These are the kind of conversations that you have. So, what you're not sure of, pick up the phone and call your insurance company and ask these questions. Find out, and that's any of us. If you have a broker, call your broker. Just ask. It's better to be knowledgeable and aware than you're now sitting there facing, the aftermath of the catastrophe, and you don't know what to do.
Well, this is why another reason why I appreciate you guys coming on and sharing this, because even though through HMCI we try to orchestrate very regular programming here, but sadly sometimes instead of repetition being leading to information being cemented, I heard that before, and we discount it really, and it's like math, man. You don't practice it, you lose it. The calculators become too easy. All right, there's a news break, Ms. Susan, and then Ms. April, you have some other things you can share with us as well. All right, for those who are sharing, at some point we'll open up the phone lines and you can call, and we've got other things to discuss later on as well. All about insurance. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. Other thoughts before we go to the break to kind of leave our listeners interested, Ms. April?
Insurance is exciting. I don't understand why everybody doesn't see this the same way.
I'm thinking I'm so excited right now that no, but it is.
It's, listen, when a lot of people, and I get the same comments that Karina gets, I know that Aniki gets, oh, insurance is a ripoff, but when you need it and it's there, you then realize the value of it. And I've been in a case where that has happened. I know many, many people have, so take your time and review it, be knowledgeable of it, and make the right choices.
Indeed.
And protecting yourself, I think, should not be something that you find boring. And particularly those of us who have experienced what a real hurricane looks like. These things are not getting better. As climate change progresses, it is getting worse. We've had some of the worst years in the Caribbean, record-breaking years, year after year, praying that this is not one of them, right? But this is not something to play with. It's a really scary thing, not just for your property, but for your life. And that's where we want to make sure that is clear and that is understood and everyone is prepared.
All right. Well, we'll give you more to help you to be better prepared and informed as we come back from our news break. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Cayman One Radio. Many people, this is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman.
Radio Cayman's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
With your headlines, I'm April Cummings. The Mosquito Research and Control Unit welcomes 3 disease protection officers to the team. 2 of the new recruits were hired following recent promotions within the team, while the 3rd will take care of MRCU's expanding services in Little Cayman. Philip Bent and Rico Reed, who began work at MRCU on May 13th and June 3rd, respectively, will both be based here on Grand Cayman. Kamarli Maxim, who also joined on May 13th, is MRCU's first DPO to be permanently based in Little Cayman. In international news, building toward hurricane strength, Tropical Storm Barry began hitting Louisiana with wind and rain Friday as it closed in for what could be a long, slow, and epic drenching that could trigger flooding in and around New Orleans. With the storm expected to blow ashore by early Saturday as the first hurricane of the season, National Guard troops and rescue crews were posted around the state with boats, high water vehicles, and helicopters. Drinking water was lined up and utility repair crews with bucket trucks moved into position in the region. Homeowners sandbagged their property or packed up and left. Singer R. Kelly, already facing sexual abuse charges brought by Illinois prosecutors, was arrested in Chicago on sweeping federal indictments that accuse him and members of his entourage of recruiting women and girls to engage in illegal sexual activity with the performer, and then later paying victims and witnesses to cover up his crimes. An indictment unsealed today in the Eastern District of New York includes charges of racketeering, kidnapping, forced labor, and the sexual exploitation of a child. Those are your headlines. From Radio Cayman's newsroom, I'm April Cummings.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
I have various items coming from different suppliers that I need to ship to Cayman. Do you offer consolidation?
Yes. Seaboard Marine offers consolidation for full and less than container loads. We can hold your packages at our Miami warehouse until everything arrives and ship it all in one go. And we have the best rates to Grand Cayman. Visit seaboardmarine.com for more information.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
Summertime is when Cayman Airways full of people are travel to Jamaica. If you're late for checking your flight, you will lose your seat. Remember now, check-in time for Cayman Airways flight is 2 hours before departure. Make sure you're not late.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. You see how funny insurance can be? I know what you're thinking. Are we on YouTube, Miss Susan? I apologize for that. So, but this is how it goes, when you not only love what you do, but you're so competent, you're so professional that you can do it and bring joy to your colleagues as well as to your clients. You guys have been truly a wonderful way to end sort of this week's series of shows. So Sandra Brown, Miss April Panton, and to Miss Karina Hides. As I was just thinking during a break, but maybe I'll come back to that question later because it was a bit of a curveball from another direction. But as we're going through the idea of being prepared, not just our property, as Miss Karina was sharing earlier, and making sure that we have adequate insurance and we understand it, but our personal, our health insurance. And you think, well, that is important. Do we know what we know? And some of us don't. We just put the card out there and hopefully that it goes well.
Yeah, it's important that you do know. I mean, the insurance companies do their best to ensure that their insureds are educated. We don't always get the opportunity to go in and make that presentation, but we do try. But each insurance company provides the insureds with the documentation that I know not everybody finds it riveting, but they should read through and know. Just keeping in the points that we want to make sure that we get out there, in addition to making sure you have your own ID card, make sure you have your dependent's ID card and their information, your children, your spouse. Make sure you have their prescription sorted out, that kind of thing. Knowing your policy and your plan, know whether you have your deductibles and if they've been met, and make sure you have cash on hand. Obviously, I know everybody prepares to have cash on hand anyways, but make sure you have that extra level of cash on hand to cover your deductibles and that sort of thing, to make sure if you're going overseas, make sure that you know what your overseas benefits are once you get over. Again, all of that is going to be within, your schedule of benefits that we call them. But again, if you're not sure of any of these terms I'm using, just call your insurance company and have them walk you through it. Know your shelter, know where you're going, that kind of thing. So a lot of this is standard, the things that you should know to be prepared for a hurricane. I think that's pretty much, on a personal level with your health insurance and for disaster preparedness, the points that we wanted to put out there so that everybody's aware. So,
yeah. And I think one of the things that you mentioned earlier on, there's so many people who have not gone through this, who actually live in Cayman now, who will not know where their closest shelter is, who don't even know what the purpose of a shelter is. And the reason to be why shelters are important to us is the fact that there's actually health care at those shelters. There's at least a nurse usually at those shelters to make sure that basic first aid and medical care is available. And my earliest memory of a hurricane was being in a shelter in the nurses' quarters. Of course, I grew up in healthcare, right? I grew up in healthcare, and I remember walking out. I would have been. This is 1988. I would have been like 5, walking out of walking out of there and watching a piece of zinc come over the Boddentown Primary School and bounce in the school field and fly again. I was like, oh my goodness, if a person had been there. I was 5 years old and I was aware of how close to death somebody could come in something like this. This is a very basic, it wasn't even a very strong hurricane. But those are the things that we need to keep in mind for those who are new to the island in particular. Be really careful to make sure you're prepared at all times.
There's a quick comment from someone who's listening to this WhatsApp thing, but as you share that, maybe I can also take time to remind our listeners that you may be in Boddentown, someone else may be in West Bay or East End, or even another section of that district. What you're experiencing may not be the same thing that the other person in the other shelter or another experiencing. So don't judge yours by theirs or theirs by yours, as it were. And take it seriously. I mean, we can joke about it now. Sometimes a spoonful of medicine goes down a lot easier with a little bit of honey, but take the information on and use it. A listener online is asking relative to health insurance coverage, and there's some of us, for whatever reason, we're here, but some are a family. This one is an example. The children are at school. Now, I didn't ask whether it's boarding school or university, so I'll just add in, does it matter if that's the case and if the child is of age, so 18 and older, or if the child is less than? The provision of the cards, the coverage, and any considerations for that should a hurricane or some natural disaster happen here, and family, spouse, children, etc., are happen to be overseas, maybe on vacation even, I don't know.
Once they're covered, you want to follow the same guidelines that I've set out. For children that are away at school, there's procedures that we follow to get them covered, which is not in the hurricane sector, but we pretty much know what they are. But if you do have dependents, you'd follow the same thing. Obviously, if you mentioned 18 years old, the way that the law speaks is over 18, if they're fully financially or physically dependent, they can still be covered up to the age of 30. Yeah. Obviously, you have to have proof of that. But again, in the case of a hurricane, you still want to have all of that information at hand. Now, that particular question, I would urge that they each call their own insurance company, because that proof of dependency might vary from company to company. That's normally already in place when or should a hurricane hit. Now, if that student is overseas at school and they're suffering from, they are the person under the threat of a hurricane or disaster, they want to follow the same protocol. If they're not coming home, they want to follow the same points that I've laid out earlier. That student, and for all of you students out there that are overseas, have your insurance card with you at all times, no matter where you go.
ID.
With your ID, always.
Okay. So.
But just to speak on the dependent proof thing, which is something I don't think that is talked about enough. Individuals who have dependents over the age of 30, dependent children over the age of 18, between 18 and 30. If you've not registered with your insurer, the proof as to why that individual is dependent. So, for instance, if they're a student, we get proof that they're in school. If they are not working right now, we get some form of proof of that. There's usually an affidavit process. I think most of us do something similar. The difference is that your one insurer will want it every 6 months, another insurer will want it every year. It depends on the circumstances. But if that is not current, then it may slow down claims being processed for your health care, and you don't want to be in that position. Generally speaking, emergencies are going to be taken care of, right? However, if there is not an emergency and you're overseas, it's something you want to be aware of, and it's something to prepare for in hurricane season as well. Make sure all of your children over the age of 18 and under the age of 30 that are supposed to be covered under the law by your employer and yourself, whether or not you pay for it. It's very important to make sure that all of that proof is up to date. So check in with your employer, check in with your HR manager, and make sure your kids are okay.
Just also, if I can,
yes,
speaking to an emergency situation. Again, make sure that you know the terms of this within your plan. A lot of people think, well, I went to emergency. It's covered at 100%. If the emergency isn't a threat to life or limb, then it may not be treated as an emergency. The service provider dictates that. They will put a code on there that will go to the insurance company, and the insurance company will handle the claim based on the code that they've provided. So again, an emergency is if you're in an emergency for threat to life or limb, okay, then it will be covered under your emergency benefit. If you've gone there because you have you need stitches or you're ill or something, that may not be processed as an emergency. In which case,
but if you have the flu,
or something like
things.
that, then it will be under your outpatient. So again, I urge know your benefit plan, and also call your insurance company and ask these questions.
And probably not even, I don't know, compounded, but I was thinking for those of us who may be traveling or may be at school, just for instance, stick with that. Know our area. I just driving through my head different parts of the world I visit, and you see sign, hospital,
evacuation route,
and then you see urgent care here in different facilities, and something happens to you, not sure. In Cayman, you know your medical clinics, that you can go to. Over there, where do you go? You're not feeling well, you've injured yourself somehow, you present yourself. Are you conscious to present yourself to the ER? Are you present yourself to see a physician but not quite sure where? that could affect, from what you're saying.
Right. So you've said it right. Know where you're going. Know your area. For the students that are away at school, most universities cover this pretty much when the kids get there, especially for the international students. I've had a lot of people that will call me before they go on holiday. I'm going here. I'm going there. And we always advise them. Listen, this is how emergency works. If you're going to a general doctor, we always sort of tell them how our process works. So, I'm from Pan American and Niki's from Generali. Every insurance company, we're very much alike in very, very many ways, but we might have little differences. So that's why I say, just call your insurance company and say, okay, well, I'm going here for 3 months. What do I need to do? What do I need to make it sure is in place? It may not even be a student. It may be an employee that's going to do training at another office. Yeah. So they want to follow the same protocol. Right.
Yeah, and I think it's all of us are in this position where we are inviting a relationship with our clients so that we better understand where you are, so that we're better able to meet the needs of where you are. So having that conversation is not a burden. It's not getting in the way. It actually serves us to figure out how to help you as well as others who may be in your position. So it really is about making sure you pick up the phone.
So one of the questions in relation to I guess dependence is how I will put it. So in the studio, if you just joined us, as we're looking at hurricane preparedness, and we're looking not just at coverage for your property, but also for yourself in relation to health. We have Karina Hides, April Ponton, and Annika Brown as our guests. Question came through: what if your spouse is the dependent? So it's not your adult child. Seems like an interesting term. Who's fully employed or unemployed or in school between 18 and 30, but it's your spouse for some reason. Does that matter?
It shouldn't, because as long as we know that they're your spouse and they're listed on your policy as your spouse, you don't need to prove that beyond adding them to the plan.
Okay.
At that point, you're fine.
Okay.
It's just people aging out of the policies that you need to be clear where they're headed next, and be conscious of the fact that you're only in certain conditions should you be covered under your parents if you're between the age of 18 and 30. Most people would be employed during that period in time or covered because they're in school or whatever the case may be. But in those circumstances, we're dealing with a growing reality of young people that are not employed that end up being covered. And this is facts. Like, this is a reality. And it's an unfortunate one, but it is an existing reality where we're seeing a growing population of unemployed people between the age of 18 and 30 who have to be covered by their parents.
Who are not in full-time education either.
Who are not in full-time education.
They may have gone off for their education and come back and are looking for work, that kind of thing.
Yep.
It's out there.
Yep. And these are the things. Maybe this way, I know Miss Susan was going to give us the break later on, but maybe we just take it now. When we come back, we'll change gears. Would that be a good segue? Miss Hides, anything you want to share with us before we go to the break?
I covered everything.
Okay, this is what you should have said. Always listen to Radio Cayman. No, just kidding. All right, when we come back, we'll still talk about insurance, but something new and interesting. It's going to be fun. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
This is JJ the Iceman. This is JJ the Iceman.
This is where the ride begins. A magical musical journey.
Weeknights on Radio Cayman, 8 to 10. On Friday nights, 8 to midnight.
Music Express.
Radio Cayman's Music Express is brought to you by Taster's Choice, home of the $3 meal special.
Some of us have perfect skin, and some of us have trouble with acne, age spots, and sun-damaged skin. Protect your skin, reduce the effects of sun damage, and restore a healthy, glowing look with dermatology treatment at Beyond Basics Medical Day Spa. General, cosmetic, and surgical dermatologist services by Dr. Geronimo Jones include treatment of acne, keloids, eczema, hair and nail disorders, and skin complications from chronic sun damage. Dermatology treatments are covered by most insurance providers. Book your consult with Dr. Geronimo Jones at Beyond Basics today. Call 945-2737.
From happy beginnings to happy ever after.
Brit K protects your lifestyle with the best insurance cover at the best possible price.
Health insurance with far-reaching benefits.
95% of claims settled in 5 days.
Low-cost life insurance.
And investments.
Security in retirement.
With a custodian pension plan.
For happy beginnings and a happy ever after.
Visit BritK.ky or call 949-8699.
Brit K, where people come first.
Reminder to all 6A members, backpack distribution is on today. Members take your ID and collect your 2 backpacks filled with school supplies from the 6A office located upstairs, the new #1 shoe shop on Hospital Road from 1 until 7 p.m. Cayman Brac members, please go to the medical wing of the Aston Ready Center this Saturday, July 13th from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. to collect your backpacks. All members, please remember, if you're asking another person to collect your bags, please send a signed note with a copy of your identification.
The Tuesday and Thursday edition of The Business Buzz is brought to you by Cayman Medical Supplies, providing quality pharmaceuticals, medical supplies, and consumer products to healthcare providers, retailers, and ultimately the patients at a reasonable rate in a friendly, caring, and timely manner. Cayman Medical Supplies is located at number 93 Smith Road, Windward Center. Telephone 949-6211.
The Breeze Fusion is back Saturday, November 2nd.
Bigger and better.
Now featuring a 5K walk run and a 10K run for half marathon trainers. Join the fun and help raise funds for the Central Scranton Park and the NCVO. Save the date or register now at CaymanActive.com or at Radio Cayman Studios. Registration is only $15 if registered by September 30th. And all early registrants enter to win a Cayman Airways voucher.
The Breeze Fusion 5K, 10K walk run.
Saturday, November 2nd.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. And yes, Radio Cayman is the best place to work. If you can't be anywhere in government, this is where you'd want to be. I'm so grateful to have this opportunity until, they promote me to be the governor. So just sit there and enjoy the day. Honestly, it's really a pleasure to use this platform to be able to inform our listeners, and especially when it comes to issues of health, healthcare, health insurance, and the like. Ms. Annika Brown, Ms. April Panton, together with Ms. Karina Hides, I appreciate, this opportunity, honestly. Now, as we look at this discussion and we see the different roles and hats that you wear, we see the importance of the industry. We hear the many comments, sometimes publicly, others sometimes from our Legislative Assembly, sometimes from informed sources, sometimes not. Ms. Brown, I'm anxiously anticipating what we're going to talk about next.
Oh, wow. Health insurance, what happens next, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Just to set the tone and get clear as to who we are and what we're here for. I think the first place to start is that all of the people who are here with you today are members of the Cayman Islands Insurance Association. That insurance association is split into standing committees, which are based on our specialties. April and I are both members of the Health Insurance Standing Committee. Karina is actually part of the General Insurance Standing Committee. And really and truly, that standing committee has been a valuable resource, I think, for regulation in the country. And when I say regulation, the Health Insurance Commission, who is one of our main regulators, and the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority, who regulates all of us, interacts with us directly as a group rather than having to make 10 phone calls whenever something is happening or whenever they need to set up inspections. They are able to actually speak with us as a group and sit down and say, this is what is happening in the industry, this is what we need to get changed.
So for clarity, and sorry,
that's who we are.
Yeah, don't want to say this to anybody interprets it incorrectly, but it's sort of like the industrial association, not a statutory body, not appointed by law or anything. You're like I don't know, the Bar Association, Medical Council,
Yes.
Chamber. You've represented the industry. Here's
Yes.
the views of the industry relative to what industry sees. I don't want to call it a lobby group because that may have disparaging
And to be
connotations.
fair, I don't think we are one because
Exactly.
our membership is so diverse. And we were
Right.
talking about this earlier on. So, for instance, Karina works for a broker. I work for an agent, and April works for an insurer. We have very different intentions. So, for instance, she represents the interest of her client. My client is the insurer at the moment, who then has clients in the Cayman Islands, and then April is an insurer who has clients in the Cayman. So there's those perspectives, those nuances, make a major difference, and so we sometimes don't always agree.
But that would make it interesting, though, because you
It
get
is.
across sort
Yeah.
of, yeah.
It really is, and I think it's actually valuable to have that multiple perspective because we get a lot of feedback. So, for instance, we get a lot. I know that the context of this is actually following up from an interview I did with you earlier on in the year when I was first appointed the chair of the Health Insurance Standing Committee. And the context of it was that we were starting to look at the entire health insurance system, the health system, and see gaps in the system and make suggestions as to what can be closed. Now, what is interesting about that is that we are getting a lot of feedback from the brokers among us on the client's perspective on how insurance is working or not working for them. So we're getting a really rounded view of the system. You know what I mean? Like there's a very
across the
from
board,
all
yeah.
of these different perspectives.
dynamic, yeah.
But and when I say we, on I think it was the 13th of June or some earlier on actually. It was in the beginning of June. I met with you on Talk Today, and we talked about what the Health Insurance Standing Committee's goals were. Our intention was to set up a working group and to go through the summer working on the system as we see it, all of the gaps that are very obvious to us. Right? Very, very obvious to us because we're in this all day, every day. And some of those gaps I've already shared with you, but I can repeat a few of them.
Yes, please.
You know, one of the gaps is that people over the age of 65 are having a very hard time, number one, finding insurance cover. Number two, being able to afford the insurance cover that they find. Another gap that exists in Cayman right now is the growing number of indigent and the responsibility of the government to recover that growing number of indigent. A couple of other gaps that I've identified. I have them here. I have a table of gaps that we've identified. Another one of these other gaps is that mental health is not treated in the same way as any other illness. And it's not clear in the law or any of the regulation what is a mental health diagnosis and what is an educational or behavioral diagnosis or issue.
And whether you need a referral for one and not for the other, and how do you access it?
And it's difficult. It's particularly difficult for the type of therapies that sometimes overlap with these two things, which are not necessarily mental health issues that should be covered by insurance. So there's a lot of places that we are identifying within the system where gaps need to be closed. One of the gaps that we found in ourselves was the way that portability is handled, for instance. One insurer treats a portability form a different way from another insurance company.
And just for those listening, portability means...
When one person is moving from one insurer to another, they're supposed to be able to carry their level of coverage over to the new cover, as long as they've not had a gap in the last 12 months. Of more than 3 months, 90 days or 3 months, I can't remember which it was. But one of the things that we're finding is that the questions that insurers are asking each other are not being answered in consistent ways. So that ends up with some clients get caught in the gap. I mean, usually we work these things out, but that's a gap that shouldn't be there.
So
you know? So they're little things that we're identifying. Some of them are little, some of them are very, very big. And a lot of them, if they are closed, would lead to the lowering of healthcare costs in the Cayman Islands, which, of course, is our goal.
Contrary to popular belief, it is our goal.
It really is our goal. And one of the things that is very clear to us is that because we see where the numbers come from, we see the growing utilization of healthcare. And we're also seeing the fact that we don't even know how much healthcare costs in Cayman because there is no one collecting data on how much people are being billed. They know what health insurance costs, but no one really knows what health care costs.
All right. It should be obvious, but just for clarity, when we talk about healthcare costs, and then you just reference it in case we missed it, health insurance costs, separate and distinct. Healthcare costs then would be what we pay for healthcare.
And I'll give you an example
Yeah.
where we don't get this information,
Right.
right? I will have 3 clients go to the same doctor or dentist, and this is just an example. I'm not identifying anyone, even though this is a real example.
The lawyer comes out.
Three different clients will go to that provider on the same day. Those 3 different people are on the same coverage, but they are charged balance. They're getting the same care, but they'll be charged something different. So, for instance, or one will be covered by April's company, one will be covered by our company, one will be covered by someone else, and they're going to get 3 different bills. Right? So that's something that does happen. Another example is that I have a client that goes to a provider. That provider knows how much that client is covered for. They will bill us for that amount. Then they will bill on top of that to the client themselves and tell them that they owe their insurance doesn't cover
double
that.
billing, in a sense?
It's not double billing.
More
It's balance billing is what they call it. So these are examples of places where we actually don't know what the cost of healthcare is.
Balance billing.
Yeah. Balance billing is a very, very common thing.
Very.
You see, there was a world in which I used to live in that would have certain connotations to that. But anyway, I'll leave that. Anyway, let me not make inferences just yet.
And to be fair, there are reasons for balance billing.
Okay.
We're not here to create any form of conflict over this. But the reality is that we don't know as a country what our healthcare costs are.
Right.
And that is a concern because until we get our hands on what the healthcare costs are and how fast they are climbing, as well as how much the utilization is going up, we are not going to get our hands on the cost of health insurance.
In addition to the healthcare costs, I can ask 2 things. Go back to the balance billing just for clarity again. We're not talking about the deductible. So let's, for instance, you went to your healthcare provider and it was $100 charge. Just to say it's a 20% deductible. Make it easy. Bill the insurance company $80. You, the patient, the client, pays $20. Bill settle. In that instance, just use the $100 example. The provider would bill $80 to each person? Or 80 to 1, 100 to 1?
I'll make it simpler. So there is a list of fees.
That's the second question. The
standard health insurance fees that is held by the Health Insurance Commission that currently exists. That is what we are required to pay to. So, for instance, if you have a GP visit, you go to see your GP for half an hour. There is a code for that half an hour visit to a GP. With that code comes a fee. That fee is standard. That is what we pay to.
We being, just to elaborate,
health
we
insurers.
being the actual insurance company.
The health,
right.
Yeah.
So when the claim comes in, we're going to pay back that claim based on that code submitted.
On that fee.
Based on that fee schedule.
Right. A standard health insurance schedule.
So, for instance, if we are paying 80% of the standard health insurance fee, and that health insurance fee should be $100, the client should be expecting to pay $20. Right? That's a 20% copay.
Right.
Except the client is being billed $60.
Yeah, because the medical provider can charge whatever they want for a doctor visit.
You see?
So one of the things I advise and what I do when I go to the doctor is I ask them, do you pay based on the shift fees?
Yes.
And if they tell me they don't, then I don't go there because I'm paying money for my health insurance monthly. And, you know, if I go to a doctor, I expect that my insurance corresponds based on the premiums I'm paying monthly. And if they're billing me 100% more, then it doesn't.
And to
make
be fair,
sense.
I mean, you don't even sometimes you don't have a choice with that, right?
Right.
But the challenge that we're having right now is the transparency, where that client isn't being told what that other $40 is. All they're saying to the client is that this is the amount your insurance won't cover.
Yeah.
So you see, so we have a lot of things that we need to clean up. There are a lot of little gaps all over the system, but they're basic things, and then there's some very big things. So, for instance, the basic things are things like that. All you have to be looking at is information and getting data and collecting data. And, you know, there are easy ways to fix that with legislation. There are much more difficult questions that we have to answer, which is what do we do when we care for our elderly? How do we distinguish between the social cost and the medical cost? So this is kind of like the overview of what, and we're just at the very, very beginning of exploring what these gaps are. So the Health Insurance Standing Committee started up a working group to work through the summer to be able to present at the end of the summer not only a list of gaps, but a list of proposed solutions to these gaps. Not with a view to make things easier for us, but with a view to really attack the issue, which is affecting everyone as a human being in this country, which is the rising cost of healthcare. And there are no easy answers to this, none at all, but we are really working our way through this. And a few things that are coming up, and health has been in the news quite a lot very recently, right? And one of our members is currently in the news quite significantly over the last 24 hours. Cineco is a member of the Health Insurance Standing Committee. And of course, there are questions as to what is the future of Cineco, you know, and there's an RFP that's being discussed all over the country right now. I was reading the comments on some of the articles online. I don't know why I do that to myself. But
you just want to be informed.
But I do. And you know, you get a real feel for the flavor of how this is a very emotive subject.
Yeah.
You know, this is a really emotive subject. I'm going to pass this to you, April.
Well, sometimes too, you see what the populace may be driven to think based on some of the influencers in society. But another topic for another time. But yes.
Yeah, but you know, it is something that affects all of us. So all of us have a right to an opinion, right? And I think where we really need to get very clear is that if the question is what has to happen next for Senegal and what has to happen next for us as a country, then one of the first places that we see that would be wise to start would be to get our hands on the facts of how things are today. And there are a couple of those facts that I think we really need to get our hands on. What is the actual cost of healthcare?
That would be provided by the healthcare providers?
Yes.
So how much doctors...
and there are ways to do that. Every part of the financial services industry has to report financials into SEMA. There's a way to do this. This is not foreign to us, right? It is completely possible to get information. And getting clear on what that actual cost is, then take a look at what is the actual profit that is being discussed out there. There's a lot of numbers that are being thrown around out there. What is the actual profit that is being made by health insurance companies? That's a big conversation. It's a very big one. And what the answer is that we don't know the answer to that, right? I don't have access to anyone else's books. We do all report to two regulators. SEMA is one of our regulators. Our second regulator is the Health Insurance Commission. SEMA is an interesting one because SEMA's responsibility is to regulate every single licensed insurance carrier in the Cayman Islands. What that means is whether or not those insurance carriers that exist in the Cayman Islands do business in the Cayman Islands, SEMA is required to regulate them. Okay? Right. And it's very important to understand that. Because the numbers that SEMA reports refers not only to Cayman-provided plans for health insurance, but health insurance plans that are provided outside of this country from insurers in this country.
Right.
Okay.
That's very critical. Yeah. The second thing to keep in mind is that the Health Insurance Commission is who regulates our conduct in the market. So the Health Insurance Commission is it's more like the watchdog. That is the place where complaints go. And the Health Insurance Commission is very, very active. I think this week alone, I got 2 witness statements that I needed to sign. They do not play. The Health Insurance Commission is very, very stringent on the requirements of employers to cover their employees, insurance companies to stay within the law. The Health Insurance Commission is very, very active. They have a responsibility over only the health insurance providers that provide contracts to people in the Cayman Islands, to people who live and work in the Cayman Islands. Okay? So those are 2 different groups that those 2 different regulators take care of. There is an overlap in that health insurers that offer health insurance in the Cayman Islands have to be regulated by SEMA. And their numbers have to be reported by SEMA, together with all of the other insureds, all the other insurance companies.
Mm-hmm.
But the approved insurer, the approved health insurer, is a responsibility of the Health Insurance Commission. All right? So just follow me for a second.
I'm with you. Yeah.
So the numbers, and I actually read it in the paper today, that there is a reference being made to a $50 million profit.
We heard it in relation
that
to
was
similar
made,
time
that
as
was
well.
made in 2016.
Yeah.
That came out on an unaudited SEMA report.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we had questions about this, and I talked to you about this the last time I was here.
Right.
We have lots of questions about those numbers. I don't know. I do not have a proportional amount of that particular $50 million as far as profit is concerned in our company. What is going on? So we had a lot of questions about those numbers, but as an industry, we had questions because 2016 was not the greatest year for us as health insurance companies.
Mm.
So we knew what our own books looked like, but of course, we still don't have the information of our competitors. So on the 13th of June, I actually, we had a meeting with SEMA.
So about a month ago then? This year, 13th of June. Okay.
And we asked those questions. And SEMA committed to providing us with answers to those questions before the end of July. They did make very clear that 51 plus million did not refer only to the approved insurers.
Local business.
Local business. So that 50 plus million is not just us, but it includes every form of health product that is written on a Cayman contract from a insurance provider
Licensed to operate.
licensed to operate in the Cayman Islands.
Okay.
So just like we have offshore mutual funds, I don't like that word, sorry. Just as we have mutual funds that are registered here in the Cayman Islands, we have products that are registered and regulated by SEMA to a very high standard, I should also add, that are not necessarily operating here.
It's not available to the local populace, but it's used as a base.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a couple. Anyway. Go ahead.
So we have until the end of this month to really get clear on what those numbers are. And you know, in the conversation that I had with you last month, I think it was. I still don't remember exactly when that was, but last month.
Was it that memorable?
Time flies.
but the last time you and I spoke,
Right.
it really was about. We have some questions. We don't know what the answers to those are, and we're a little bit stumped. But now we've had conversations with both regulators and received some form of clarity and a commitment that the public will also be
Notified.
informed of the change, of not just the change, because the numbers are correct. However, they are referring to more than just what is being interpreted
So
in the absence of those answers to those questions.
If I could then, and just to make sure that I understand this as I sort of replay it in my head, if we take a set of financial statements, a company with subsidiaries operating in different jurisdictions, profit for the year was $100. That was their total group profit. But jurisdiction A made $10, jurisdiction B, and go down the road. That's what, in a sense, if SEMA had that information, we could be looking at it in that perspective that the industry is this, but for the Cayman context, this is the 50 million, but only X of that applies to here. Is that information then, when being reported, is it that it's collated and it's all one consolidated figure?
And that's what has caused the misinterpretation, is that it is one consolidated figure. Yeah. However, we don't have a clarity as to what that breakdown is yet, and we will be finding out very soon.
And again, just for me, you're not saying that, let's just say it's 5 insurers, health insurance provider.
Call it 8.
It's 8, yeah, okay. 8 plus, okay.
8 plus whoever, 8 approved insurers in the Cayman Islands.
Right. So with the 8, you're not saying that one company might be making a whole lot of money, one might be just scraping by, one might be making a loss in that particular year. But,
well, I'll tell you, the competitive environment of the Cayman Islands is a hard place to do business when it comes to health insurance. Nobody's making that kind of profit. Yeah. And because what you're finding is that the competition is heavily based on premium. So I will lose a client based on the fact that somebody else has a better premium because I have more information, but I can't lower my premium based on my data.
Right.
And they will go to another insurance company. But there's a lot of movement around the market. But the competition is so strong in Cayman right now that none of us are in a position to be making a 51 plus million on an annual basis.
All right. I'm hoping that this doesn't sort of confuse the situation, but seeing what's out there in the media, trying to understand it. It's easy to go to banks and get their financial statements, publicly traded companies to get their financial statements. You can compare them, look at their PE, by the price on the ratio, and different things. So I went and I looked at the captives for a second. I know it's not here, but just looked at the captives, and I don't recall which year. I was actually going to bring it across just for clarity. So I picked some publication that showed number of captives in Cayman, showed their profits and the like, and it was breaking it down by different sectors. You know, the captives that did with healthcare and seeing the premiums. So from that perspective, then if the captives are able to do that, are we then able to do something similar for the providers here? If that was being provided, as I presume it must be by them to SEMA, by the local other healthcare providers, it shouldn't be that difficult to discern.
Well, the thing is that it's not just captives.
There's
There's all sorts of, so we are not clear as to what qualifies as a health insurance number based on SEMA's categorization. What we suspect it means is that it's something that's triggered by a health event. So for instance, if we actually look at something like short-term disability, that is not a health insurance plan in our minds. It's not an approved insurance plan based on the standard health insurance contract. However, it is a health triggering event. Does that make sense? So that activates it. Yeah, it is based on the state of your health.
Okay.
There are other riders. So, for instance, critical illness is another example. Critical illness is probably the best example. That is not really a standard health insurance contract. It's not a health insurance plan, but it is triggered by a health event. It is not a comprehensive health insurance plan, which is really what we're talking about, right? The standard health insurance contract being the basis. So those are examples that don't fall into the category, but could very well be in those numbers for all that we know at this moment. Because to be clear, like, we don't know what other category they would fall into. It makes perfect sense that it would be in health if you look at all the categories that SEMA reports on. But what we're waiting for now is clarification from SEMA, which we have been promised. And once that is on the table, then I think that we are in a much better place to have that discussion. However, we will still be missing other pertinent information that we need to be able to make decisions as a country about where our healthcare is going.
All right. Well, maybe after the break, then we could pick up on some of those things and then continue our discussion. And we'd appreciate this opportunity. We invite you to stay tuned and join us after the break.
What do we love more than summertime? Extra flights between Cayman and Jamaica with Cayman Airways, of course. Cayman Airways has added extra flights weekly for travel between Grand Cayman and Kingston this July and August. Visit family and friends in Jamaica or send for them to visit you in Cayman. But hurry, these extra seats will sell out fast, so book yours today. Remember now, check-in time is 2 hours before departure. Call Cayman Airways reservations on 949-2311. Contact a travel agent or book online at CaymanAirways.com.
Sometimes things just don't go as planned. That's why you need Contractors All Risk Insurance from Fidelity Insurance Brokers. Ensure you're covered in the event of property damage and third-party injury or damage claims during your construction projects. And with Fidelity Insurance Brokers, you can be sure you are getting competitive pricing and superior customer service. Call us today for a free quote. Fidelity, we're good for you.
I've got some beautiful clothes. I know just where they go. Good and cleaner.
Now reintroducing eco-friendly green Garmento fabric bags, which can be used as your clothes cover, traveling bag, etc. Also, get your fabric shirt boxes that can hold up to 10 folded shirts. And for those other shirts, put them on hangers with an eco-friendly poly cover. All bags are biodegradable. Puritan Cleaners, 3 convenient locations to serve you. Countryside, Savannah, 946-1884. Elgin Avenue, beside Off the Peg, 949-2452. 337 Eastern Avenue. Drive through, rain or shine. 949-7104. Free pickup and delivery. Puritan Cleaners. You feel good when you look good.
Always separate debris from household garbage after a hurricane hits. Debris includes roofing materials, downed tree branches, and metals. All items of debris must be placed in separate piles to the front of the property or at a side that is easily accessible to collection trucks. Debris must be placed in a location that will not cause obstruction to roadways or come in contact with electrical lines. For more post-hurricane waste management tips, visit the DEH website at www.deh.gov.ky.
89.9 Radio Cayman helps you to weather the storm during this hurricane season.
One of the most crucial elements of hurricane preparedness is storm awareness. During the season, it is of utmost importance to pay attention to the latest local weather forecasts, as hurricanes do not suddenly form or strike. There are various methods of advanced notification. Utilizing such may be the difference between a favorable outcome and disaster. Both television and radio serve as excellent mediums with up-to-the-minute storm path information in the wake of a hurricane. Another method of tracking a hurricane may be only arm's length away. Your smartphone or tablet can be your most valuable tool before, during, and after a storm, providing countless numbers of apps with crucial hurricane information. Many apps allow you to track storms with moving radar and satellite imagery, plus offer alerts, current conditions, forecasts, advisories, and even video.
This hurricane preparedness tip was brought to you by your community radio station, Radio Cayman 89.9 FM.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. Thanks for joining us in the studio, Miss Annika Brown, Miss April Panton, and Miss Karina Hydes joins us as we talk about health insurance. And if you missed us earlier, we had a chance to chat about hurricane preparedness for your property. And we also chatted about the issue of your health insurance. Make sure at the very least you have your card. And for your children who are not with you always, make them have their cards in their hand, especially if they're going to be overseas or going out to the nightclub or what have you. Always have their cards with them. If they can drive, take their cards. All right.
That's right.
Now, the Health Insurance Standing Committee. I just fielded a quick call off here, just either asking me to clarify or seeking clarification. We did it earlier, but if you don't mind me asking again. This is not a government-appointed entity. This is an industry-appointed entity. How is the representation on both the health insurance and... Well, let's talk about that one. How is that? That's determined by the industry? We nominate people from the industry to come on?
Well, to start with, yes, that is the answer. That's a short answer.
Okay.
It is not a government entity. So most of the countries of the world have an insurance association, and the insurance associations throughout the world are generally connected in some way. Ours, I think, falls under the British Insurance Association, but the Cayman Islands Insurance Association is who we all belong to. And what is quite good about that is that almost everyone, I think all approved insurers. Approved health insurers are members of the Health Insurance Standing Committee, including the government entity. And I think that is particularly critical because we are able to support our views from all sorts of angles, right? So whenever whenever I'm wearing this hat and speaking to the industry and the industry representation, it is coming from all of these different angles. I'm not representing my company so much as I am representing the industry.
Right. And as you shared earlier, in case the listeners either missed it or just joining us, you're representing the provider, the client, the broker. I mean, almost everybody is in that same bottle.
Yeah, so the association is combined with brokers, agents, and insurance companies. It's not just the insurance companies it's together.
And this is very confusing for some people, but I actually don't work for an insurance company. I represent an insurance company.
I work for an insurance company.
And and I'm a broker, and I work for my client. I don't represent neither the insurance company or...
Right. So there are different roles that these companies play. So the insurer is who actually bears the risk. The insurer is the company that underwrites all of the risk. That means that they're the ones that are responsible for reinsurance. That means that they're the ones that are paying claims. The agent, and there's several companies on islands that have agents. So, for instance, the easiest place to understand what an agent is life insurance.
Mhm.
You know, there are a lot of
Right.
people that have a single life insurance agent, and that's who they go to. But there are also companies that are agents, which is where I work. And then we have a broker. A broker is who you go to help you make a decision on which insurer to work with.
Right. So that broker will look at insurance company A, B, C, D,
Yeah,
and say,
so
well,
we work with
yeah.
all of the insurance
Right.
companies on Island.
You need this particular product.
Well,
This is
most.
what we recommend based on what you're saying, and here's the price. And
Yeah.
a broker.
So based on your risk exposures and
Mhm.
your categories, and we say, okay, well, we know company A has this product plan that we think would suit you best, and then we'll say, but this one has more limits, so we kind of advise you according to your needs.
Based on what your needs are, the broker will make that decision to support you as to like which one looks better to us. You still get to make the decision, but we get to advise you. But another thing that is often taken for granted is that health insurance is very, very special. Anything to do with health decisions requires a significant amount of expertise. And so what you will find is that brokers, agents, and insurers in health insurance actually generally have their medical director, a team of nurses, a team of case managers, people who are actually qualified to make medical decisions, who are doing so on behalf of the health insurance company. All right. So not only do we have 3 different types of company, but there are a lot of qualifications. I love to actually talk to students whenever we're looking at careers and stuff like that. I love to sit down and talk to students and say, "What do you want to be?" "Oh, well, and I want to do IT." "Oh, you could work for an insurance company." There's almost nothing that someone says that they want to do in life that can't in some way be integrated into an insurance company.
Right. And thank you, because I asked that earlier as we go through. As parents, as it's the summer and our teachers talk to our children, become the lawyer, become the accountant, become the IT person, and get your MBA if you want, but you can still use that skill set in a sector. You don't have to be in a law firm.
You don't have to be pigeonholed into something.
Or an accounting firm, as it were. You can still use that.
Yeah.
All right, well, this is what I love. Now, before the break, we were chatting some other stuff. Is that okay? You want to continue in that vein? We're looking at it, or you want to take us?
Remind me, trigger me. What were we talking about?
Is it April?
Maybe we should just go to questions.
All right. Well, we could, but the notion then, as we look at, well, you know what? Let me be guided by you guys, because we've seen a lot of discussion in the public domain now. Some of it may be genuine. Some of it may be because we're ill-informed, misinformed. Maybe just because we don't have timely, accurate information and the like.
And I think that just before we jump into that, I think that's what the CIIA is trying to do with these committees and by having these conversations. I think there is a lot of misinformation out there, and the insurance body as a whole, whether it's the insurance company, the broker, or the agent, we all need to get together, including the providers. We need to be one unified voice to make sure that everybody understands what we're looking at, what it entails, what does it mean, how the insurance works, what's driving the cost, because I think that there's too much misinformation. So we've somehow got to get everybody, that's from the person just pulling out their ID card and going into the doctor, to our politicians. Everybody needs to have the same information so that we can all make the best informed decisions and know how to go forward.
And in fact, that is one of the biggest challenges that I think we are facing as a committee. It is getting everyone to the table to discuss where things are.
All the stakeholders?
Yeah, all of the stakeholders. So we do very well with our own clients. This is something that I think is very important. Like we are building relationships with our clients. When somebody is in an emergency room, they're hiking in Michigan, and they get into trouble and end up in an emergency room, I get a phone call at 2:00 in the morning. Okay, like this is a relationship. We are tied, right? And that is a very clear one that I think is working very, very well. One of the things that we noticed, though, is that it's very difficult to get a consistent response around the provider community. There are some providers that are excellent to work with.
Medical providers?
Medical providers, healthcare providers. And they're the majority, really, are very, very, very good to work with. They provide a lot of detail. They're transparent with their clients. They are open, and they comply with the health insurance law. Right. And it's really unfortunate that has to be a distinguishing factor, because everyone should be. Right. But they are verifying benefits. They are claiming appropriately without any misinformation on their claim forms. They are communicating honestly with their clients. The majority of healthcare providers in the Cayman Islands do a very good job at that. There are many, though, who do not. And those are the ones that we're struggling to get to the table. Can we have this conversation, please, about how this is going? Because we want to find out, is it that you don't know how to bill properly? Or is it that you need to, is it that you really are intentionally billing incorrectly? Are you intentionally telling the client wrong information, or do you not know? And it's hard to get those people into the room. And so, for instance, I had a very personal attack by one of the medical providers not too long ago. And my response was, okay, clearly you're very angry about this. And can we please have a conversation? And the instant response was, no, we're not having this conversation because you are who you are. You are what you do.
Okay.
And that's a difficult thing. Like, you can't really work with
Right.
that, and the invitation is there. But I don't know what it is. Is it that I'm a lawyer or that I work for a health insurance company?
Wow, that's two strikes.
I'd like to think, I know, right? The devil incarnate.
Yeah. If I may ask then, earlier you shared the scenario where a patient sees a healthcare provider, patient 1, patient 2, patient 3, 3 different bills, 3 different amounts. I've had examples where...
By the way, that's not illegal, just to be clear.
No.
Right,
You didn't
right.
say...
You have
yeah.
the right to do that.
Right,
yeah.
right. And I was just wondering from a previous life where you've had insurance company providing, say, health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Insurance company provides 3 different quotes to 3 different companies for the same product that the company is selling,
Mm-hmm.
but the prices for the premiums are different. And the insurance company says, well, it's different because company A has 5 employees who are all 90 years old. This one has 500 employees, but they're 20 and they're athletic and whichever.
Mm-hmm.
So they justify it based on the different type of coverage, but it's the same, right?
It's
yeah.
a different level of risk.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So how is that different in a sense when the insurance company says this, the healthcare provider say, well, I saw 3 patients, I billed in 3 different months, but it's the same code, it's the same thing, but it's a little different because, well...
The problem is they're not using the same code.
Okay, all right.
Right, so that,
Yeah.
that's
where it comes in, right?
Exactly. The decision making is... I think the difference is this. The health insurance company is a regulated financial entity. For that reason, it is held to a very high fiduciary standard.
Mm-hmm.
We have certain responsibilities with people's money that we are held to account for. What has happened is that financial services has developed into a very high standard when it comes to regulation. And you'll see this with mutual funds.
Right.
You see this with any form of financial regulated industry in the Cayman Islands. It's very tightly regulated. However, the history of medicine is much more personal. It is much more relationship-based. And it is very, it's informed by different parts of the world and different schools of thought. And there is an art to medicine as well that we acknowledge. It's not treated with the same kind of uniformity.
Mm-hmm.
A dollar is a dollar is a dollar. However, a human being is different. You have a ballerina who's broken her leg, and you have a couch potato who's broken his
Mm-hmm.
leg. The value between those 2 different legs to those persons are very different.
Mm-hmm.
So there is already a built-in subjectivity that comes with medicine which makes it very difficult to regulate. However, there are places where it can be done better.
Right.
And so much so that, for instance, in the United Kingdom and the United States, there are standards there. So, for instance, in the US, in the UK, I think it's called NICE, and the one in the US is the NCQA.
I think so, something like that. Something.
But these are safety standards that are followed, and you'll find that they're broken down by specialty. And this is the standard of conduct in this kind of practice for this kind of treatment that is adhered to when a doctor is performing their duties, right? And that's just an example. We could be talking about physiotherapists. We could be talking about nurses. But there's a built-in subjectivity that makes it difficult to start with. But there is still no financial accountability.
Well, I think
that's the thing that's missing.
Trying to go back to your question.
All right.
Sorry.
No. I want to hear you. Sorry, apologies, Ms. Susan. Can we
Just really quickly going back to your question, it's hard for us to. We don't have sufficient information. So going back to the three different billings, we don't have sufficient information on the provider side. We're not knocking them. We're not saying they can't charge. We don't know what their expenses are. Okay. So we don't have sufficient information to know whether it's right or wrong or indifferent. So that's what we need. We want them to talk to us.
And not necessarily us. It doesn't have to be us.
They're
regulator, because we have the Health Insurance Commission. There's also the Health Practice Commission. Information will be key to making the decisions for this country.
We'll go to our break. When we come back, phone lines are open. We take your calls. You share your thoughts with us. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio K-Man. Radio K-Man's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
With your headlines, I'm April Cummings. At the invitation of the government of Montserrat, the Cabinet Office's Deputy Chief Officer Administration, Robert Lewis, recently hosted a series of workshops on policy development and implementation best practice for 43 public servants over a 4-day period recently. Supported by the Cabinet Secretary and the Deputy Governor, government says the sessions are in line with the spirit of sharing best practice among British overseas territories. In international headlines, a state of emergency has been declared in Louisiana in anticipation of Barry, a storm that at a minimum is expected to lead to storm surge and heavy rainfall. Forecasters are predicting between 10 and 20 inches of rain, which is a big concern because the Mississippi River is already nearing flood levels. U.S. Labor Secretary Alexander Acosta said today that he is resigning. This after the renewed scrutiny of his handling of a 2008 secret plea deal with wealthy financier Jeffrey Epstein, who is accused of sexually abusing dozens of underage girls. President Trump, with Acosta at his side, made the announcement as he left the White House for a trip to Wisconsin and Ohio. And a man who kept sharks in a pool in his upstate New York basement has been convicted of trafficking wildlife. The 38-year-old man was stopped by authorities in July 2017 in Georgia. He was transporting 5 live sharks in the back of his truck. After investigators searched his home, they found an 18-foot diameter pool with 7 2 to 4 foot long sandbar sharks and 3 dead sharks. Sandbar sharks are a protected species. The rescued sharks now live at the New York Aquarium in Coney Island. Those are your headlines. From Radio K-Man's newsroom, I'm April Cummings.
Radio K-Man, the voice of the Cayman Islands. What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiokman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio K-Man is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio K-Man.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. And thanks, Miss Susan, publicly for letting me, take license by her. Why? She's like, you're not hitting the brakes. I'm like, nope. I got my full foot down on the throttle. Let's go fast. Anika Brown, April Panton, and Miss Karina Hides are our guests as we talk about health insurance. Now, if I may, if you forgive me, revisit something that we were asking earlier and about the representation on, for instance, the Health Insurance Standing Committee. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean to, belabor that at all and reminding people this is...
The more people know who we are, the more we can have those conversations with those people.
All right. So industry representation under the Cayman Islands Insurance Association, one of the standing committees. It's not a statutory authority and the like. And now, you were chatting earlier and I was thinking, well, you have this, and this, but the patient, the client, that, I don't know, the end user, as it were, is that represented on the committee directly?
See, that's something that is an interesting question, right? One of the and there's several answers to that. What I think people forget when they're dealing with their insurer is that they are also a human being who also has health insurance, who is also a patient. We are bringing our own personal experiences to the table as well as our professional experiences. However, there is something else that I think that is important. We are on a real campaign to connect with the people of the Cayman Islands and have conversations so that we can get clear perspectives. We're tough-skinned. We can take complaints. We can take we take fire every day, But we are in a position where we really want to understand from the other perspectives what is happening in the current health system, so that as we put together our proposals, they're informed by not only ourselves but also the experience of other stakeholders. Of course, what we propose is not going to be complete because we only have our perspectives. But we meet on a monthly basis, and we open an invitation to people who want to meet with us. We have had several guests at our meetings. We have had providers at our meetings. Not a lot, but some healthcare providers will visit with us, particularly those who are bringing a new service to the Cayman Islands will visit with all of the health insurers and find out how is it that we work. And those are usually the providers that hit the ground running because they can sit down and ask those questions with all of us at the table, hold us to account for the answers that we gave them, and they get to set themselves up very well informed. We've had in the past, we have had members of Parliament visit. That has not been a common thing. It's usually the Minister of Health or the councillor that works with the Minister of Health. We haven't had a visit in a long time. However, that is something that is always available. If anyone wants to get in touch with us or wants to be invited to a meeting, we have a Facebook page that you can contact us at any point in time. It's the Cayman Islands Insurance Association page. Very easy to find. And I think we actually posted that we were going to be on air today on the Facebook page. So several of your listeners might be coming out of our Facebook page. But following that page or having that conversation with us, we actually field comments and questions and so on, and we can set up meetings from those. We're in a position where if you have an issue that is happening and you contact the association, if you haven't contacted your insurer first, that's something that we can take a look at. Like if you need to if you want to be part of the national conversation that we are attempting to have. But what is critical is the understanding that we are all in this ship together. Right. Everybody needs to start bailing.
Everybody that goes from the end user to the providers all the way across the board. Just going back to our Facebook page, the committees are trying very hard to get the general public educated. Nobody really wants to talk about insurance until it affects them. You're paying the premium or you need it, right? And we're always the bad guy no matter how you look at it, right? But the more educated you are, the better informed decision you're going to make. So we welcome, somebody that wants to represent the community, the end user, the consumer, to come on in and meet and, bring a series of questions or whatever it is so that we can educate them as well. We're happy to put that information
or be educated by them.
Exactly.
We need to let this be a partnership where we're hearing and speaking and having conversations rather than being attacked or attacking. That is not constructive. And when I say that we're on this ship and we all need to start bailing, I am not exaggerating. Healthcare costs in the Cayman Islands are unbelievable. Health insurance costs in the Cayman Islands are also very high as a result. There's something that needs to happen, and we need to figure out what that is. And I understand that the government is paying attention to that right now. There's that RFP that is out for the reorganization or repurposing of Cineco. I don't necessarily believe that is the answer. But let's see where this goes. Let's see what the answers are as we start to collect more and more information. Right. More and more real information, not politically inflated dramatizations.
Okay.
We will be in a much more productive place to figure out where we go forward. We have questions.
We have a couple of callers online. Shall we go to our phones?
Sure.
Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Anarchy Brown, April Panton, Karina Hides are our guests. Welcome to Talk Today.
Good afternoon, Sterling Dwayne.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
And your guests also on your panel.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I must admit I was very very happy to hear when Mr. Nikki said earlier on that come the end of this month, the truth at last will finally come out from the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority. For too many years, we have had politicians on both sides of the house. We've had medical practitioners. You name it, people have slung this profit figure of $51 million something at the health insurers, when in fact it is not true of the approved health insurers in the Cayman Islands. And I'll go as far as to mention that on the YouTube broadcast of the show you're doing right now, somebody has been adding notes on the side, and one of the notes still, despite Aniki's comments, still means that somebody makes 51 million profit from 65,000 people in 1 year. The person obviously did not hear what Aniki said, or does not want to listen to what they said, because what she quite clearly said is that extra profit is not coming from the 65,000 residents in the Cayman Islands. And that is the kind of twisted truth that have been put out in recent years, which makes this a farce. And it's time people started to behave themselves and stop spreading the lies and rumors. I look forward with bated breath to seeing those results that SEMA publishes at the end of this month, and congratulate your panel on what they're disclosing there this afternoon. Thank you, folks.
Thank you very much, sir. And with respect to the caller and to what you shared, but if we don't have information, if the information we have is from SEMA, a credible, accepted, source that we would get, and it says this is what it is, repeating it shouldn't necessarily, fly in the face of things now until we know.
Well, and this is the thing. Ask questions is my answer to that. Not everything. And this is before the internet. Prior to the internet, there was a newspaper. Prior to the newspaper, there were the town criers. There has always been a responsibility as a human being to ask questions and question what you're being told and make sure that you're solid, that this is the truth.
Right. Well, that's why I like statistics. They don't lie, just a person saying it. We don't have another call. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. You're on Talk Today. Welcome. Good afternoon. Thanks for sharing.
Good afternoon, Sterling. I'm on.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for listening and sharing with us this afternoon as well.
Yeah, I did try Christian.
Okay, Mr. Christian.
I have a few suggestions.
Yes, sir.
That if they follow, they might be able to reduce the cost of insurance while making a bigger profit for the health providers, and especially help to their customers or clients. Mm-hmm. I must state a personal experience first before you. 2001, I was diagnosed with cancer of the liver. I came back and it came on more tests and everything. They were sure I had cancer. That was in February. I took one part, like a grain of rice, I'd taken off my liver, and one X-ray, and I went to Cuba with it. And not in 15 minutes, the doctors could tell me it was not cancer. They kept me in one night to make sure, and sent back the report that came on, when they verified that it was not cancer. Now, a thing that cancer, and as I said, especially in case I have to fly overseas, is a big cost of the insurance premiums. Right? Mm-hmm. Now, the insurance, my bill in Cuba was less than $400. My bill in Cayman was more than $7,000. Right? Mm. And there's a few things I found out up there. One that, well,
no, go ahead. I'm listening. I was going to ask you something, but it doesn't. It's just that you and I have a different perspective, and I probably need to be more public. But I don't, Your other suggestion would be, sir?
No, I had to tell you that first because the insurance companies paid for my visit in Cuba, right? Mm-hmm. And when a person is diagnosed with some sickness, especially those who have to send overseas, it's a big cost to the insurance companies. I used to work for insurance but that Dominion Life, which is life insurance, really. But I have some knowledge about health insurance as well. Right? And if they could set okay, for one, the rooms in Cuba, if you got there with a child or elderly or someone, they have a little part in the same room that you can actually be with them. This is a great part in healing. Right? For two, I've also found out that there's another disease that's diagnosed a lot like cancer, which is not cancer, but what I had. And I spoke to the Cancer Society on about at least 3 occasions that lectures come down, and they did not seem to know. So I suggested to them they should try to at least get some of the professors in Cuba to come down and lecture some of the doctors, because cancer is a very expensive sickness. Right? So if the insurance companies here would try to link up, talk to officials in Cuba, and instead of sending their patients to America, have them sent to Cuba, they're going to save millions of dollars over the years.
Yes,
Thank you, sir.
I'm actually going to take that one if that's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, and that's a very interesting point, and and he makes very, very good points. What you're finding is that there are territories where healthcare costs are significantly lower. Cuba is one of those places which will accept health insurance, interestingly enough, but not all companies in Cayman are permitted to do business in Cuba. But that's one of the realities of the world in which we currently live. There are other people that will go to Costa Rica, that will go to Colombia, but the results are mixed. The results are significantly mixed. We don't know what is going to come back sometimes. However, one of the challenges of the Cayman Islands as we currently are today is that we have very, very high first world expectations of healthcare, and we have very, very high demand for access to the United States in particular, which is the second most expensive healthcare market in the world, which is one of the challenges that you will find living in Cayman, and you're gonna see that this is very, very different from how things were 30 years ago. Because our population has changed significantly. The majority of people in the Cayman Islands are not people from the Cayman Islands who probably have a lower expectation of access, but probably not. At this point, I think we all have very similar expectations. And one of the things that you're finding is that choice is something that people in the Cayman Islands are willing to pay for. So the standard health insurance contract has very clear limits about what can be accessed overseas. And in being accessed overseas, it can be accessed in the U.S. However, supplemental plans have global access overseas, some of them. Most of our companies have at least one plan that you can go anywhere in the world, and people still choose to go to the United States. So while I understand and I hear the point, and I have no objection to the truth of it, where we are today is that health insurance is more than just a national conversation for the government to be having about the provision of care to Caymanians. It is also a conversation that is being had by employers who are seeking to recruit and attract the highest quality employee from all over the world. So they have to have something that is comparable to what that person has in wherever they are in Europe or North America, for them to be able to even consider moving to the Cayman Islands. So I think in having the conversation about national insurance in the same breath as having a conversation of growing the population to 100,000, it is difficult to have those two conversations without biting your tongue, because they do not work together. That is not an attraction. And one of the we have conversations with HR managers all the time. I can't get this person to move here until you approve their insurance, and I really need them tomorrow. So can you make this decision today? You know, and that conversation is really about their underwriting and what they're going to be qualified to be covered for, etc. But that's people coming in from overseas. Now we really need to get clear on our goals. We really need to get clear on what our goals are. I know what our goals are as a Health Insurance Standing Committee working group. The Health Insurance Standing Committee Working Group is very much concentrated on making sure that the people who are in Cayman today are able to sustain their healthcare costs. Whoever comes in the future is not our problem yet, right? That is not our goal. That is a national conversation that needs to take place in a different conference room than mine. However, where we are today is looking at the gaps that we need to be closing. And unfortunately, where we are today, those gaps are not going to be closed by limiting choice to places like Cuba.
All right. Let's pause and take a quick break, final break, not very long. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Wow, it seems I buy a battery every year.
Oh, for real? You should buy your car battery from Vantman. Their batteries are tough. I have a 3-year warranty on mine.
Oh, I know that trick. I take it back and they charge me a percentage of the price.
Hear me out, bro. Not at Vamp Bobo. You can get a 3-year full warranty, no charge. And if they install it at Vamp, it includes free towing and jumping service. And let me tell you, you will never have to get your hands dirty changing no battery.
Get Motorcraft Max or Plus battery for 20% off when it's installed by the service department at Vamp Motors on Walker's Road. Now that's a deal you can get charged up about. Vamp Motors, keeping you on the road.
Headlines.
With the latest headlines.
Headlines.
All the news when you want it. Tune in to Radio Cayman for hourly headlines of the day's top stories.
One of Cayman's bright and shining young stars.
Local, regional, international.
Headlines.
Turning to international news. Updates on the hour between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays. Radio Cayman News.
Headlines.
Your voice, your choice for today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
On a daily basis, making it easy to connect with you, our listeners. Add us to WhatsApp today, 925-3261. That's 925-3261.
Radio Cayman.
Send a text or voice note.
Can I send a request, please?
You don't really have to ask us. Just send a request.
This is a shout out to my ex.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you for joining us. Miss Annika Brown. And as I look at her, I'm reminded who her parents are. So I shall remember that. Miss April Panton and Miss Karina Hides are our guests. We have some calls online. Let's continue. We thank our listeners for sharing and for those who are calling. Good afternoon. Welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Hello.
Hey, my friend. Afternoon to you.
Yeah, good afternoon, Sterling. Gabriel Rambo here. Sterling, good afternoon, especially to the leaders, especially them.
Afternoon.
Gee, thanks a lot, bro.
Good afternoon.
Leaders not first, no? Sterling.
Yeah, man.
Into the gas, right? I recall, right? Hurricane Ivan, right? 2004, right? Hurricane, right? And certain insurance, they actually got liquidated, right? They got diminished now.
Mm-hmm.
Due to the payout. The allocated funds, you understand?
Right.
So, and came out now, we are in a economical inclination, right? And everything relegated. So I hope, like in the future, in a property insurance company, I doubt that happen again. You know, I doubt that happen again. So everything can place it, and everything in place.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
That's my contribution today.
All right. Thank you for making it, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Talk to you soon. And we'll see if we have one more. But as we're looking at it, I recognize the time. We will, as Ms. Anaki has shared previously, she came on when she was first appointed, have these continued discussions to keep the discussion in the fore. Something that you shared earlier, many things, but one thing that hoping that as a populace, not just as electors, but as a populace, but electors in particular, as voters, that we don't make this conversation be with respect, just for the government, whether elected or appointed, for the sector, or for some other industrial association that is for us, because you were sharing. We failed to realize that you're individuals as well. You probably, maybe the primary providers in terms of healthcare for your families, your patients as well as employees, as well as in some cases the employer. This is a significant cost for many of us for our budgets. It could be a couple of $1,000 a month, just depending on the thing.
It's the second biggest deduction of your salary.
Yeah, it can be, yeah.
It's very expensive, and as Aniki kind of said, it's not just a conversation for the insurance companies or the brokers, or it's a national conversation that we all have to have.
It's not just a conversation for this room. I will have this conversation on a domino table tonight and at brunch on Sunday. I honestly, like, that is how critical. But this is how critical this is, you know, and. And one of the things I didn't want to step over, because you started to say something about, you know, the patient being involved in this conversation. Yeah. We have been playing with the idea of having town hall meetings to discuss these issues once we have gotten our clear picture from all of our different corners and presenting it and having that conversation in town hall meetings throughout the country. And one of the hesitations is that we have done this before and they have not been attended. So my concern is that it may not be something that is front of mind in that way. But if it is something that we need to be doing, I would really like to get some feedback on that. You know, this feedback. And where we are right now is that we have our Facebook page, and I can be contacted at my place of work at any point in time. This is a part of my work. You know, so please feel free to contact me at Generali. There are other members of our committee that can be contacted. Call your own insurer. Your own insurer is going to be a member of this committee.
You have to standing committee.
Absolutely. Right. So have conversations with your own insurer. Have conversations with us. And then if it comes to the point where we are clear that there will be an uptake to us having a public meeting in a public place, I will be there yesterday.
Yes. Well, if it's worth it, we certainly would offer, whether during lunchtime, I can speak to Ms. Norman about it, maybe in the evening. I say this, and some people misconstrue my intent, and I make no apology for it. If it's political, it's not intended, but if it is, it is. Health care, health insurance, health coverage, health, everything. That's a pillar.
Yep.
Education is the other pillar.
Absolutely.
They need to be the core things that we get right in our society, but in a society. So if we can have the discussion here, if a politician, a physician, a parent has a question and it's a misunderstanding, it may be that they're calling out a particular provider or particular, whether it's insurance or whether it's medical, and it's an issue that's affecting one, it probably going to affect others or will affect. Let's have that discussion so that we are not as vitriolic in our conversations, but also we're not thin-skinned in our responses either.
Absolutely. We need honesty. That's what we really need. We need honesty and openness.
Right. Well, I shall avail myself of the invitation, if you are mindful, and hopefully you guys will be able to come back on collectively, individually, as frequent as possible. Perhaps I can ask the listening public, though, is that we move beyond the jargon and don't allow that to deter us, that we ask questions, and sometimes we're deterred by the responses that we get from those physician, policy provider, others, and we feel that we're being intrusive, but we're not. We're paying for this.
The patient also has its responsibility of understanding their own health insurance policy and asking the right questions when you go to these providers. What are you charging me? Because sometimes, you know, they think the insurance company, I'm covered 100%, no deductible, but what is the actual cost? Just being able to ask those right questions so that you can make sound decisions.
But I'll share, I think, just thinking to what you shared, having those public discussions, town hall here, otherwise, would be helpful. Because in previous engagements, I like to ask questions. I like to know. Sometimes I don't understand, so I'll ask it again. I'll ask it again, the same question a different way, just to make sure the answer is consistent. Now it's just a practice, but it works for me. But many times the people to whom you're asking the question really don't want to entertain you. You know, just take it inside and keep quiet. You know, who are you? That doesn't work for me.
And that shouldn't work for you. That's exactly what we are up against, in our opinion. You know, is that that should not work for anyone. Everybody should be answering questions. That is their responsibility to answer. But another thing too, I mean, not only do we extend the invitation to the public, we would like to extend the invitation also to the medical provider community. Beyond the people that are always in contact with us, who have always asked the right questions, who when they don't know something, pick up the phone. We would love to actually have more engagement and more of an understanding. No one is trying to stop people from making a living. Where we are is in a ship that we think is sinking, and all of us will end up going down with it until we get past what I can see as acrimonious conversation. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. You speak about education and health being the two pillars. That's the two pillars of civilization. It's also the two pillars of your identity. Because you are your body and what you know.
Yeah.
And what you're able to understand and do. And if we are fostering those two things together, they need to go hand in hand. We can't have a blind population that does not understand what their rights are. Yeah. And they're putting their bodies in positions where they're not, they're not safe.
Something that I'll share, and I'll ask you to guide it, because I've realized I've done this with younger people who may be influenced by sometimes the things you say, not just only your own children but others. And once sort of said it back to me, if you know something, so if you know to eat better, exercise, sleep, then you make better informed decisions. So if you have information, education, you have knowledge about a thing, then you make informed decisions. That's on you on a personal level. Don't eat too much of this. Maybe don't eat that at all, or after a certain hour. You make better informed decisions. Education. Likewise with education as a populace. Well, public invitation for when that information comes back for SEMA and or any other things that we'll coordinate another discussion as we, again, take license from Ms. Susan. Maybe we wrap up our discussion, and Ms. Hydes, if you wish, any sort of closing thoughts, again, to Ms. Panton and then Ms. Anaki. All right. Ms. Hydes?
She did it.
Hey, you go. You know what? Boy, being a part of the fold makes it go even better. I got to text my buddy here and say, good for you, man. Classmates are rude. Miss Panton.
Again, I think education is key. Each and every one of us need to make sure that we're educated. We've put our points out there on certainly the hurricane preparedness. But it really goes down to, the consumer. You get an insured kit, go through it, know your product, know what you need. What you don't know, call and ask. And that goes to the insurance companies, to the providers, vice versa. Education is key, and we need to all get together and make sure everybody's well educated.
Thanks.
And Radio K-Man's the best.
You're winning today.
Next one, she can say Susan's even better.
You beat me to it.
Yeah, there you go.
If I'm going to leave anything with anyone who is listening today, the one thing that I would like to leave is that you have the right to ask questions. I think I say this every time, but it is such a critical thing. You have the right to know what is going on with your money and what is going on with your body. And those are two things that no one should be lying to you about. And no one should be hiding information from you about. And that not only applies to the individual, but to the country. Yeah. What's going on with our finances and what is going on with our health. What's really happening with us as a country. And it's very important that, and it's not to say that people are being dishonest necessarily, but access to information is something that I think we are all going to need to make the right decisions going forward for the country, as well as for every single one of us as individuals living in this boat. This boat that we keep bailing. So, and thank you. Thank you very much for having us, Dwayne. You're always a very, very welcoming host, and Radio K-Man is the best. Yes. And Susan and Dwayne.
Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure. And I know it can be a difficult discussion for many of us. It can be emotive. The jargon alone.
So important.
Yeah, it is, but it's important. And especially as we start to age, how do we access that? As we have dependents, or our children are going off island for a sporting event, they're going off for education, or for what other reason, even us as traveling, do we know so that we have courage? Little things. Hurricane is coming up. Not hurricanes coming, but do you know what you need? Yes, you have your flashlight and your batteries and your tunes already came on, but do you also have your insurance card?
Right.
Well, thank you all very much, and I look forward to our next discussion very soon.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Susan, thank you very much. 6 minutes and 13 seconds over, but good stuff. Monday, join Mr. Art for the record. Come back for Talk Today right after the midday news and midday meditation. I'll tell you to do one thing, but you're going to do that anyway, so be blessed.